Yesterday, Sayadaw started to talk about what is a yogi. And in this regard, he spoke about the three kinds of kilesas which are to be dispelled and the three methods for dispelling them. And in particular, he mentioned that the transgressive kilesas, vitekama kilesas, are overcome simply by avoiding them. By undertaking sila, we avoid transgression and thus we dispel them. So at that level of kilesa. And Sayadaw mentioned that Mama, yeah. There's much to say about sila. If we are to go into detail, and 60 days would not be enough to go through all the details about sila, morality. So Sayadaw said just what's essential to know about it. And he mentioned that sila is very important. It's similar to the mouth through which we get nourishment. We have to have a mouth in order to get food, and also that mouth should be healthy without sores. And only then can we take nutriment properly. So in order to undertake meditation, bhavana, in one's life, the sila needs to be good. And if it's not, it won't be easy to develop the mind. So Sayadaw mentioned this as much as possible yesterday. Sila is the practice of avoiding what should be avoided. So, with sila, we avoid doing deeds based on extreme lobha, greed, dosa, anger, and moha, delusion. And by avoiding them, we dispel them. So we take on the attitude, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. And in doing this, the qualities of moral shame and moral dread, hiri and ottappa, are very important. When we keep sila, our behavior becomes clean. And also others aren't harmed. So we understand that this is the present benefit that we get from observing sila. And one who keeps sila becomes known all over. Sila, morality, is like a fragrance, but not like an ordinary fragrance. The fragrance of a sweet-smelling flower will only travel with the wind. It won't go everywhere. It won't go against the wind. But the reputation of someone who keeps sila is like a fragrance that can spread everywhere, both with the wind and against the wind. When we keep sila, our physical and verbal behavior is clean, pure, cultured, refined, and it becomes beautiful. And thus our life is not base. So hiri and ottappa, this moral shame and moral dread, is what keeps us from undertaking gross behaviors. And if we keep sila, then we're truly human. So if all the people in the world, whatever religion they were to have this practice of restraining their physical acts and their speech, then we can consider what a good world it would be. It's said that in order to avoid the misdeeds of body and speech, the kaya dutritas and vaci dutrita, one has to have courage. One has to have the courage to keep sila. And only then will one restrain oneself. Only then will one refrain from committing wrong. And one has to have both faith and knowledge in order to keep sila. One has to understand that when one keeps sila, it benefits oneself and also others don't suffer. If we do misdeeds, if we kill others, they'll suffer, and also we will suffer the consequences of that. So we have to understand that refraining from this is good for us. And we have to trust also that our behavior becomes clean, and it will be beautiful. So both knowledge and faith are what enable us to keep sila. And it's said that sila comes to completion through faith. One has to know the quality of sila, that it has the ability to dispel the gross kilesas, to dispel transgressions. And one has to know how to keep sila. So if one can keep sila, then one has the basic foundation of humanity. One is basically human. And it's said that this being able to keep sila is connected with and dependent upon hearing about it and listening respectfully to it. So hearing about sila, how to avoid misdeeds, is like knowing about what food is bad for you before you eat it. If someone tells you, this is bad for you, don't eat it. And if you avoid it, it'll be good for you. Then this is similar to hearing about sila. That these misdeeds that we undertake to refrain from, these misdeeds, if we do them, it's bad for us and we should avoid it. And if we avoid it, it's good for us and also others are not harmed. So keeping sila, to reiterate, is dependent upon hearing about it, hearing about how to keep it, and listening respectfully to that. In the Buddha's time, the question arose concerning sila. And the Buddha replied that sila is good. Sila is good all the way up until old age. And it's also good for the very young. It's good all throughout one's life. Well, parents are the first teachers of a child. They teach their children to avoid, don't do this, do that. So they're the very first teachers. Only later do the parents hand the child over to teachers for further education. So the first teachers of a child are parents. And if the parents are good, their children will be good. And only if one's children are good can the parents be said to be good. After the parents train the children in basic morality, then teachers that we have, they teach us a skill of further education. And the Burmese saying also goes, if the teacher is good, then the students will be good. And only if the students are good can the teachers be said to be good. So if we see a child that has good behavior and they avoid doing things like harming their friends, harming other beings, if they avoid behaviors that are gross and despicable, that good behavior that they have is like a beautiful ornament, a beautiful piece of jewelry that they wear. Well, if we think about worldly jewelry in the world is only good according to one's age. Young people wear a certain type of jewelry, and if you were to see the same thing on a 15-year-old, that you would see that the thing that the 15-year-old would wear on someone who's a woman who's 65 or 70, you would say that woman is crazy to wear such a thing. So that's the way it is with worldly jewelry. It only looks good, appropriate, when it's appropriate to one's age. But sila is like an ornament, a piece of jewelry that looks good on everybody, from young to old. So if we were to ask, well, what's the most suitable ornament or adornment for all people? We would say sila, morality. But most people in the world have broken sila, and thus the world. So the Buddha's answer, what is it that's good all the way up until our old age? His answer was sila, to avoid killing and so on. And if we keep our sila clean every day, it's very satisfying. So although it is very satisfying and it can give us happiness to see our clean sila when we look back at it, it's only the base for mental development. It's the base from which we need to go further. If we don't develop our mental energies, and if we don't keep our mind clean, then our mind will just go all over the place without any shame at all. The mind will have no stability, and thus it'll become low and base according to whatever it sees. If the mind sees something that it likes, it'll become greedy. If it sees something detestable, it'll become hateful. And the mind will, without our mental development, without any restraint, it'll just wander all over the place. So a mind that is filled with greed, hatred, and delusion, or lobha, dosa, and moha, is not clean. Their mind is foul, wild, and coarse, and we can also say it's burning. It burns us. It's detestable. So people think, okay, we get an education, we learn a skill, or we learn a lot, and we get a job. With our job, we can make a good living. Is that enough? So try it and see if that alone is enough. One of the yogis, Sayadaw taught in the past, told Sayadaw that although we live in an air-conditioned room, our hearts are burning. They're burning due to the defilement of lobha, dosa, and moha. So this practice is a method for being able to stay in an air-conditioned room with a cool and peaceful heart. Without sila, we won't be able to make our minds clean. So if we don't keep sila, if one doesn't keep sila, we're no longer like a human being. And greed, hatred, and delusion, if we just let our mind go, our mind will be overwhelmed by these. So our mind will really become inhuman. If we look at the population of the world, those people who have inhuman behavior and who don't do anything at all to try to develop their minds, to try to control their minds, they're in the majority. in the vast majority. So there's no way that any world peace can come about without the restraint of sila as well as mental development. One can understand that a method of mental development for cleaning one's mind is necessary. So some people think that only if one side conquers another will we be able to create peace. But in the Buddha's view, world peace begins with making one's world peace begins with making one's own world peaceful. So what is one's own world? One's own world is one's own being, one's mind and body. Mama. First of all, one has to make one's physical and verbal behavior clean and pure. And then one has to control one's mind with the training of samadhi. And if one does that with sila and samadhi, one's own world, one's being will be quite peaceful. And if many people throughout the world could do this, there would be true world peace. To make our mental attitude clean, we need mindfulness. Mindfulness sati, to control our minds. And in summary, this means to observe every arising object at the moment that it arises. So what do we mean by every arising object? Well, every seeing, every hearing, every tasting, touching, smelling, every movement that we make, every physical, verbal, mental activity that there is, whatever object arises, we need to be aware of it with mindfulness when it arises throughout the whole day, every waking moment except for when we're asleep. So we need to make effort. We need to make effort to be aware of the presently arising object. And this requires courageous effort. Only when we make courageous effort to be aware of the arising object will mindfulness, sati, arise. Sati protects the mind. It keeps kilesas from coming into our mind stream. And also, with sati, mindfulness, the mind doesn't run anywhere. It becomes stable. So every second we have to exercise like this. We have to practice observing every arising. And only then if we do that, only then if we make the effort to observe every arising object at the moment it arises, only then will our mindfulness come into being. So this is where yogis start. So if we apply this summary of the practice to note at the very arising, to observe every arising at the very moment of occurrence, this practice, which is summarized by that, has 7 benefits the Buddha declared. And the first of these is purity of mind, becoming free of the mental impurities such as greed, hatred, and delusion. That's number 1. And the second benefit is we can overcome sorrow. And the third is that we can overcome the lamentation due to sorrow when we can't stop from crying. We can't control our tears. That's lamentation. So we can overcome this with this practice. And we can also come to the end of physical suffering. That's the 4th benefit. We can also overcome mental distress. That's the 5th benefit. And the 6th benefit is that we can uproot permanently kilesas with noble path knowledge. And the 7th benefit is that we can gain the true happiness of realizing Nibbana. So the Buddha declared that this is the one way for gaining these 7 benefits. And the yogis, we yogis are now on this path. So Sayadaw gives the analogy with dirt. We talked about dirt. So we can see that in the world Most people don't like to be dirty. People think that cleanliness is good, and having to live in a dirty place, having to put up with one's own body being dirty is not fun, it's miserable. And similarly, one can draw the conclusion that humans are beings that like to be clean. And similarly, mental dirt. Nobody likes mental dirt either. So what path is it? Sayadaw asked this question. What path is it that we should follow in order to clean the mind? This path that we're practicing now. What path should we follow to overcome sorrow? It's this path. What path should we follow to overcome lamentation? This very path. What path is it we should follow to overcome the various forms of physical suffering? To overcome all the kinds of mental distress that can arise? This very path is what we should follow. And what path should we follow so that we can dispel the mental defilements that are at the root of our suffering? It's this very path. And what path is it that we should follow to gain the ultimate happiness? It's this path. So we should know that these are the benefits of the practice, and knowing them, we have to believe that these benefits are possible by applying the practice. If one doesn't believe that these benefits can come about, then one's effort will only be half-hearted. One has to know the benefits that the practice can bring, and knowing them, naturally the desire to gain these benefits arises. One should want to get these benefits. One should have that type of zeal. And only then, having that type of zeal, effort will follow. So if one doesn't know about the benefits, or if one knows about them but doesn't really have any desire to gain these benefits, one's practice won't be successful. One has to really want to gain the benefits that this practice brings. Only then will one be willing to practice continuously, to apply one's mind. And Sayadaw said that some yogis are always adjusting their posture, moving here and there, and this is not helpful for the practice. The meditation teacher has the job to tell the yogis about the benefits of the practice and to awaken their faith and their zeal to gain the benefits. So the Buddha, at the very beginning of the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, the Buddha declared the benefits boldly that can be gained from this practice. So one has to listen to this respectfully. One has to know what benefits the practice brings, and one has to trust that one can get these benefits. And then one has to actually want to get them. One has to observe every act with sati, with mindfulness. Every second as one moves, whatever one does, one has to bring awareness to that. And for one who really cherishes the benefits and has the desire to gain them, such a yogi will be able to practice, to apply themselves moment by moment. So as Sayadaw said, it's the meditation teachers who have the job to wake up the yogi's faith and to inspire them with zeal. And the yogi's job is to apply the practice moment by moment. And in doing so, one should not hamper oneself. One should not have regard for one's body or for one's life. There's 3 stages of effort. First is the initial effort, the effort required to get started. And from there, there's a second level of where effort has to be increased in order to overcome laziness. And then the third stage of effort is progressive effort to reach the goal stage by stage. One who applies these 3 kinds of effort is a true yogi. So, again, meditation teachers have their job. Their job is to explain the practice, explain the method. And the yogi's job is to apply it. If you apply this practice, if you walk this path, you will reach the safe haven. You will reach the destination. To walk it, you need to be aware of everything that arises, every bending, stretching, lifting, moving, placing, and so on. Everything needs to be done with the effort to be aware. Sayadaw hopes and he makes the wish that you be able to try to apply the practice every moment. That's all for tonight. Sadhu, sadhu.